I'm Jennifer Ong, reporting live from Hospitality Asia Channel News Studio. COVID-19 threw all Malaysian businesses a curveball and caused a severe blow to all business sectors. 2020 was one of the most challenging years for F&B operators, and 2021 doesn't appear to be much better. The true impact of this pandemic has yet to be seen and can't be measured until the situation stabilizes. The F&B sector has been experiencing the consequences of all the lifestyle changes, with working from home largely emptying Malaysia's city centers and neighborhood shophouses. The recent sudden announcement by the Malaysian government for mall closures, amongst other hotspots, listed in HIDE, a new warning system designed to monitor COVID-19 hotspots, as well as another nationwide lockdown, will surely cripple many more F&B businesses in an industry that has already borne the brunt of the fallout from the pandemic. With grim statistics like over 4,000 infections daily, more than 37,000 active cases, and 1,700 over deaths as of 10th May 2021, Malaysia is facing a third wave that could break into a national crisis. It is therefore pertinent to ask if the MCO 3.0 is as strict as the previous lockdowns in order to flatten the curve, and how can premises listed as COVID-19 hotspots by HIDE exit the high-risk status and get back into business. Joining us virtually today at the Hospitality Asia Channel News Studio are Lin Siu, the Executive Director of Oriental Group of Restaurants, Mr. Edward Su, the owner of Opus, Cava, Leonardo's, and Lucky Bow, Mr. George Ang, the owner of A&W and The Barn. We have also Encik Said Ashraf, the owner of Manate Steak Hub, Chef Yogi, the owner of the Flower Restaurant, Puan Rina Abdullah, the owner of Jibi and Sarai Group, as well as Encik Najib Hamid, the Managing Director of the Jibi and Sarai Group. We will be discussing about the petition from over 80 restaurant owners and head chefs on the change.org platform, appealing to the Malaysian government to allow dine-ins during the current MCO 3.0. Now, before we start, let's take a look at the guidelines for MCO 3.0. All economic sectors will be allowed to operate. No mass social gatherings such as wedding dinners, birthday celebrations, and official events will be allowed. No face-to-face seminars, conferences, and meetings. No Hari Raya celebrations, including visiting friends and family, will be allowed. No inter-district and interstate travel is allowed except for work and economic purposes, health matters, emergencies, vaccination appointments, and long-distance couples. No sports activities, and all educational institutions to be closed. Mandatory work-from-home policy to be enforced by employers with no more than 30% of its management in office at any one time. However, childcare centers, nurseries, and kindergartens are allowed to operate with strict SOPs. Hari Raya prayers in mosques and suraus are allowed, limited to 50 people for premises that can accommodate more than 1,000 people. Akad nikah and marriage ceremonies are allowed with strict SOPs, and 3 persons, including the driver from the same family, are allowed to travel in a vehicle. Question is, are there going to be really strict regulations for MCO 3.0? Let's hear from our speakers today. Welcome, everyone. Maybe we can start with Edward. Edward, what do you think of these guidelines of the MCO 3.0, where some sectors are allowed to operate and some aren't allowed to operate?
Well, I think that the numbers at the moment, the COVID numbers are very, very high, and it's very, very scary. And we need to have some form of a lockdown to bring down the numbers. But the problem is that I think this MCO3 will not solve the problem because, right, the biggest source of all the COVID spread, which is factories and construction sites, etc. They're still allowed to open, and we can go out and shop for clothes. We can go out and have our hair cut, but we can't go out and dine in restaurants. And I think that's a bit unfair because it's greatly affected us in the F&B sector.
Right. Okay. Thank you for your thoughts. And what about? Let's hear from Lynn. Lynn, I mean, you've got so many restaurants under your belt. I mean, what are your thoughts about the guidelines that were implemented for MCO 3.0?
The first thing that comes to my mind is a certain degree of double standards. I mean, I can totally understand if we had to close for dine-ins. I mean, we can cater to takeaways. I mean, as business owners, we always find ways to work around every circumstance. That's okay with me. But if you think about it, if other sectors are allowed to open, I mean, I've seen supermarkets that are being swamped by people. I've seen jewelry shops that are open. I've seen a lot of non-essential services that are currently in business. I mean, in a way, it makes me feel that, you know, why should restaurants be punished in a very honest point of view? And I can't reason. I mean, I always believe in logic, but to be honest, the third MCO, there has been no sense of logic.
Right. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of mixed feelings around as well. What about, I think I'd like to hear from George. I mean, you've got A&W and you've got the Band, right? And how many outlets do you have? How many A&W outlets do you have, George?
We have 60 A&Ws, 8 Bands.
Right.
We have many more subways as well.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts about the MCO 3.0 guidelines?
No, I think the hype list was a real surprise to all of us. It came out and it was sent out to everybody, and then suddenly the minister comes up and said that the key malls have to close for 3 days. That was shocking because I was looking at the list, and these are all malls that actually adhere to very strong SOPs. They have Sejahtera apps in every of their main entrance. And there were malls that I did not see listed on the first list, that did not have any entrance. For example, like open malls like Desa Park City and Chitta malls where there were no real entrance.
Right.
So it was very funny. It was like victimizing the person who is more adhering to the SOP. So I think Tony Paul came out with a good article today on really, do you believe the hype list is really a good system or AI to really track the offenders?
Right. I guess, that's one of the questions that has been really going around the last couple of days since the height list was published, is that how authentic is the height list and how do they actually gather the data, right, and the analytics behind it. What about Yogi? Chef Yogi, you run a fine dining restaurant. What are your thoughts of the MCO 3.0?
Jen, MCO 3.0 does not help anyone, any one of us restaurateurs. As far as fine dine is concerned, flour, I'll only talk about flour. Yeah. The first one came in January and we suffered, and all economic activities were open. The same question. And now again, the same thing. For a restaurant like ours, it takes a lot of time to build a clientele. And to go back to delivery is not a solution.
Right.
For example, from the first MCO that came in, we did not retrench a single staff. Not even one till date. Now, what is the help that's going to come in? The help is not enough. For example, there was earlier 1,200 and then $600 that the government was giving. Right. But that came with condition. Right. And those conditions cannot be met. So if you're going to tell FN people that you have to shut down, fine. Help us with 50% of the salaries that are listed with you. Don't give us 1,200 or 600 ringgit. Give us 50% of salaries listed, because there's no other way it helps.
Right.
If I'm still contemplating, should I start delivery or not? because in the last MCO, when we started delivery, the sales dropped by 90%, not even 80. We thought, what are we doing? And then suddenly one fine day, the government stands up and says that you can start dining 2 people a table. You know, the investment that goes into do deliveries, and it's a massive loss. This time around, until now, FLA has not touched delivery. And
Right.
we are thinking as a team what to do.
Right.
Because tomorrow the government stands up and says, guys, okay, we've heard you all, and we are going to allow 2 a table. For me to convert from delivery model back to the model of what I do,
Yeah.
it's death.
So that's where the challenge is, isn't it? Especially for fine dining restaurants. Yeah.
Man,
It is really, really tough.
for
You
me,
know,
for me, it's very simple. You want to lock down, go MCO1. And I'm very clear. Give us 50% of our salaries listed with the government authorities. Just give us that. We are okay.
right.
This is the last phase, I think. And if we are able to pull this through, the country should be all right.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. What about Encik Ashraf? You've got 7 outlets now. You've got 7 of your Minate Steak Hub, isn't it?
Yeah, 7, including the recent that we opened in Seremban.
Mm.
So my opinion in this MCO 3.0 is, I think, is a totally waste of time. I think, if I agree with the rest of my the panel today, Lynn, I think George, Edward, I think it's a waste of time, because if they want to implement, they should implement the one at MCO1. Then we are okay, because now all the high risk industry such as construction, such as factory are all open. So, and then at the same time, then they only stop F&B from operating the dine-in. How significant is the effect of the stopping F&B? That it will give effect to the country. I think because F&B is is proven the lowest risk and the lowest contributor to the cluster and the spreading of the COVID in Malaysia.
Has there
So
been any
how-
clusters though, Encik Ashraf? Has there been any
Yeah.
clusters from the F&B industry since MCO 1.0?
I think there was only the biggest cluster was from Kedah. I think during the MCO1. But you didn't hear anything from the MCO2. You didn't hear anything during the MCO3. Although we already maximized our seating capacity, but you didn't hear anything. Any proven case, any proven clusters on the F&B. So the big question is, why F&B? And then now you're already doing MCO, you're already allowing everybody to do business, factories operating. Then you already restrict this the capacity of the car only 3%. Then you already having inter-district, you already inter-district ban, you already having interstate ban. So what are the different if you would just allow F&B to dine in? Definitely our customer will be lower, because you have all this ban, all this travel ban, etc. But we have never, they have no strong basis of stopping F&B from dining. If they have a strong basis, yes, F&B is contributing a lot of cases, F&B is causing a lot of and then we are not adhering to all the SOPs, then okay, you are most welcome. And still, I support MCO, because if without this MCO, I don't think we can curb down the spread. I think we need this MCO. But if you want to do it, you must do it on the like MCO1, or else you will killing the F&B, all the small SMEs. And all the big boys will survive as usual.
Right.
So it's unfair. It's totally unfair. The MCO 3.0, to recap, is just unfair.
Right. And what about Encik Najib? You've got, your group has got Sarai and GB as well. You've got that many outlets. So what about your group? What are your thoughts on the MCO 3.0?
To me, this 3.0 MCO is more like a F&B MCO rather than the total MCO. They're letting everyone open. Our main concern, I think everyone's saying, I think we as the Malaysian citizen, we should support all these, whatever can take to bring down the numbers. But our concern is, we don't want to have MCO, halfback MCO. You are letting everyone else open, and then yet you asking all the F&B to close. That's why I said it's like a 3.0 F&B MCO rather than the total MCO. Again, like the other panel mentioned earlier, there's proven that F&B is contributing the least cases in the MCO. I mean, in the COVID cases in Malaysia. So to us, if we want to do MCO, do the first MCO. Close for the first. You want to close for 2 weeks? Yes. Close everyone for 2 weeks. Of course, everyone's going to suffer, but we want to look for a long-term solution. Hopefully by doing that, we can see the result, a good result, and then we can start back slowly to our business rather than doing this focusing on certain people, especially on the F&B. I think all F&B businesses is suffering with this MCO from the first MCO, and then again we are doing business like a roller coaster now.
Right.
We don't know anything. It just can be today it can be busy, the next day it can completely close.
Yes,
So hopefully they are looking into a best solution, what can be done, and then to me it's. I know it's not that simple to do a complete lockdown, but I think that's the only result that proven before that is works.
Let's now zoom into the restaurants that are in malls, right? So nearly every shopping mall in Klang Valley was listed in the high list as high risk. Now, how badly affected are these F&B operators located in these malls due to the sudden shutdown requirement? Lynn, perhaps you've got a lot of your outlets situated in malls, I believe. How has it really impacted your restaurants?
Hi, Jan. Well, it's already bad enough that we have to do takeaways in most of our restaurants. But this sudden closure of malls means that we can't even do takeaways. So that means that for 3 days, we have zero revenues. And this was called upon like on Sunday, which is like Mother's Day. And we were already taking in pre-orders for takeaways on that day itself. So we have to do a lot of diversion to our other outlets. But all I can say that anything that is sudden, any policy that is, of immediate effect, costs us more than any safety. I mean, you can't just close a business down within 4 hours because by the time they announced it, that was about 8 p.m. when we got the news. And then next day, all malls have to be closed under the high list. So I mean, I think it's a bit like a Russian roulette. If you can afford to survive through 3 days without any revenues, then you can. But it's just unfair on the other operators or any other sector that has to close because of that policy.
But then how would you expect the government to manage the high risk malls, for example, right? That is reflected in the through the My Sejahtera in the high list. How would what would your suggestion be? Would that be better if there was a bit more time? You agree? Do you think that it's the right way to go for them to shut down the mall so that they can do a proper sanitizing of the entire mall?
I think because as one of the panelists has mentioned, most of these malls that are in the high list, they have practiced SOPs, very stringent SOPs. So I think with a bit more time or lead time before we all have to close, that would be much appreciated because, most restaurants have perishables. We can't just close overnight. What are we going to do with, rotting food or, live seafood, for example? I think there has to be more consideration and understanding as to how businesses work. We can't shut down overnight. It's just impossible.
Right. And George, what about you? You've got lots of your outlets located in malls as well. I mean, and you've got the other restaurant, you've got the barn as well located at malls. And I think 1MK was one of the malls listed in the high list. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, the planning is very, very bad for this announcement to come in immediately. I think what you can see in Singapore, I know a lot of Malaysians don't like to compare to Singapore, but if you look at the Singapore circuit breaker, they had one MCO and they control it well all the way until today. They are still having dine-in, maximum 5 to a table. no big events, no big gatherings. So they followed through. Up to today, businesses are still open, dining are still okay. You can still do a lot of activities, but of course, confined in small spaces, they still have to follow the circuit breaker phase 2 regulations.
Right.
So what I believe is if they want to control the F&B, and F&B has been, I think, less than 2% of the clusters, or
Yep.
maybe less than that.
Mm-hmm.
So what they should do is just implement. If you feel that we are also danger spots, maybe implement like 2 or 3 to a table, or a similar family in this household can dine together in a table.
Right.
Those laws, but you still allow dine in.
Right.
So that at least we can still pay our workers, like, our key cost for F&B is the labor and the rent.
Right. Well, what about the F&B operators who don't follow guidelines? And I think that's one of the issues where there were quite a few F&B operators who were not adhering to the SOPs, and therefore have created some form of unnecessary creation of all these guidelines and rules. So what about those? How do they balance then for the ones who follow and the ones who don't
I think
follow?
it's just not only F&B. There's a lot of lax in enforcement, or inconsistency in enforcement. So I go to a market. Some markets are very good. They have one entrance, one exit, and everybody is taking Sejahtera app, and there's a capacity to how many people the market can take. So every time 3 people go out, then 3 people can come in. But there are also markets that don't care at all. They just let anybody come in. It's like open market, pasar malam, everywhere, and they put all the Sejahtera app QR codes, but nobody take them. So to use the hype, whatever hype AI program that they cost millions of dollars, it is not effective. It's not if everybody is not following it. Every business is not using it, right?
Right. So again,
that's
it's an enforcement
frustration
issue.
Frustration from an operator's point of view. It's like you punish the good boys, but the bad boys do whatever they want,
Unfortunately, isn't it? Yeah. And, how will this round of national lockdown and the MCO 3.0 impact the F&B industry? What are your thoughts, Encik Ashraf?
In my opinion, more and more F&B will be dying very soon, I think. One is not because definitely like the one that already established. They always have ways to get out all this editing and then try to absorb all the costs. But what about all the small restaurant operators? They only have 1 or 2, and then they also have same problem like us. Like when we are in the high street, we are not really delivery friendly. And then government also should know that we need to absorb the cost of 30%. We need to pay to the Grab, pay to the Food Panda, all the 30% of our profit must go there. And then at the same time, our customer, we lost about 80% of revenue. And then at the same time, we need to pay salary, we need to pay rental. And then we didn't hear anything about any moratorium continuation. Right. And then we need to absorb all the operation cost OPEX that we need to, as usual. And then how do you expect all this F&B, especially the small F&B, to survive from this the MCO 3.0? Like what my other panelists advise after this, if they really want to do like MCO number 1, so that it is proven that it can cut down all the spread, it can bring down the numbers. And then if you are doing this totally unfair MCO number 3.0, like what Mr. Najib was saying, this is F&B MCO. He considered this is F&B. I totally agree with him.
Right.
I totally agree with
him. How bad, Ashraf, how bad do you think the impact will be? How bad do you think it will be for the F&B industry?
Yeah, I think because definitely it will be very bad actually, because we have been like in a roller coaster, like Najib saying, same like what Najib saying, since MCO number 1. But thank to God that we still survive. We still survive because now it's not about the story about things to get profit. What I have told my staff and all my team, this is not the time for us to get profit or what. This is time for us to think for survival. To survival. We want to sustain our business. We want to make sure that we survive post-pandemic, that once we open. That is our main concern, our main focus right now.
Right.
But if you are doing this kind of MCO 3.0, you are really punishing the F&B industry. Actually, I don't know why they are punishing the F&B. If there is a one or two F&B that's not adhering to the SOP, then you just find them. You just find them with a big sum. Then they will learn the expensive lesson from whatever. Then they will not repeat. But don't, because of this one or two culprit in the F&B industry, you are punishing whole F&B industry because of this. So it is totally unfair, MCO number 3.0. And I agree, I concur with Najib that this is F&B for the F&B MCO actually.
And you know, back to what we were talking about earlier about the petition, Edward. You know, you've garnered over 5,000 signatories for your petition in 2 days. Can we hear a bit more? What prompted you to start this petition?
Jennifer, basically, you know, like our business really suffered during MCO1, right? That was for about 7 weeks. Our sales went down by 90%. And then came MCO2, right? And our sales fell even further than that. And now MCO3, I'm not even opening any of my 4 restaurants because it's not worth opening, right? And like what we have all said before, right? If we are doing a full MCO, a full lockdown of all businesses, and you really bring down the numbers, then after that, we can all restart. That's fine. We are prepared to take that sacrifice. But the problem now is that everyone else is allowed to operate, but not F&B, outlets. We can't have dine-in, and they think that takeaway and delivery is good enough. But for some of our kind of F&B, right, we can't do the takeaway and delivery. It just doesn't work. We tried. I tried in MCO1, tried in MCO2. It doesn't work.
Why doesn't it work, Edwin? Why? Okay, so why is it that some restaurants are surviving, right, with their food delivery model during the lockdown, while others have faced difficulties? So why can't some restaurants pivot to do the food deliveries and takeaways?
Basically, Jen, right, like our kind of restaurant, which is kind of mid to high-end restaurants, our staff cost is high, our rental cost is high. So the type of food that we sell, the price is also relatively high.
Right.
So for example, my pasta is 35 to 40 ringgit, right? How do I fight against people who are selling, char kway teow for $8 or $10, and most people, when they want to do takeaway, they will want to buy the cheaper food items, right? And the problem is, right, if we use Grab or use Foodpanda, we're going to pay 30-35% of the food cost. So we make even less, right? And now with the rainy season and with fewer Grab delivery riders, right, we also have problems even using the delivery system. So it just doesn't work. We tried. I tried everything, but unfortunately, we're not suited for that kind of business model.
Right. So, and what would you propose? So the purpose of you having that petition, starting that petition, right? What was the key objective, and what was it that you really wanted out of the petition, Edward?
Jen, I wanted them to understand, firstly, that the F&B restaurants and all, we only contribute 0.31% of all the clusters, right? That's less than 1%. Right. We are not the main cause of the spread of COVID. Even if those numbers are not 100% accurate, it is 10 times more than that. It's only 3%. Right. It's a very, very small number. So allow us to do the dine-in. When the numbers are high, naturally people will be more careful. Our business is already going to fall, maybe 30-40%. Right. But at least if we have 50, 60, 70% of business, we can still somehow survive. But when our business drops 90%, there's just no chance of survival.
Right. And Chef Yogi, you run a fine dining Indian cuisine restaurant. And how have you tried to pivot to do takeaway and deliveries? I understand during MCO 1.0, and I don't know if you did the MCO 2.0 in the deliveries, but how do restaurants like yourself cope with MCO 3.0 if you're not doing food delivery and takeaways?
It's very bad, Jennifer, very bad. In fact, exactly what Edward said, Ashraf said, George said. Uh, it drops. MCO2, I did delivery, comfort food, ultra that we were operating. And you'll be surprised. The sale was sometimes not even $1,000. Now, how to survive? I have around 23 staff working for me. So exactly what Edward said, he shut down all his 4 restaurants in this MCO. We decided not to do any delivery because the cost is very high.
So what
And
are you doing then? I mean, is your restaurant open now during MCO 3.0?
No, it's not open. We are shut completely.
What happens to then your costs? Do they still run? I mean, you still have to pay salaries and rental and utilities and bank loans.
Exactly my point. So if you go back earlier, what I said, you want to lock down, you shut it down fully. But there is data evidence that you are not, as Edward said, you're not even 3%, 4%, okay, 5%. Even then, the figure is so low that you're not going to be responsible for spreading the virus. Why do you lock down a restaurant? For what? You can allow 2 to 4 people on a table with adequate social distancing. And as I said earlier, fine dine restaurants like ours, it's automatic social distancing for us. It doesn't make sense. It really does not make sense. I can only imagine this entire group, all 6 of us, what's going on. It's madness. And you multiply 6 into the number of restaurants in the country. It's called die. And you know what is the worst part? In one of the interviews in MCO2, I said it that the problem is this. If a restaurant shuts down, who remembers? Who remembers you, Jen? If a restaurant shut. If I shut down today, who's going to remember me? Nothing. Because the thought is, if one shuts, 10 open. People have too much money to invest. So it's about losing, the thought of losing what you have and the feeling for it. And if that kind of thought is across the board, then we all die. There'll be another 20 opening up. But you're going to lose A&W, you're going to lose a few from the Serai, you're going to lose a few from Edward, you're going to lose a few from Ashraf, and you're certainly going to lose me.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. And is it a very different scene in Singapore for the fine dining restaurants?
It's very different. There are strict measures, and it's working there. It's working in Singapore very well. In fact, I'm hearing Australia a lot. Even there it is working. My friends have restaurants there. And they said, Yogi, the aid was more than adequate, number 1. Number 2, when we open, people are coming in. There's social distancing measures which are taking place. In Singapore, just have a look. I've been reading articles and talking to a few friends of mine out there in fine dining. They are very clear. I just heard one of us say that, Edward said, we will not do business up to 80, 90%. Of course, none of us are going to do that. If you allow 2 to 4 people on the table, we've dropped by 50%. And similar things have happened in Singapore. They've not been able to reach the peak of 100%, but they are achieving 60, 70%. With this, you don't make money. With this, you can pay. You can pay your suppliers, you can pay your rentals, you can pay your salaries, you can pay your utilities.
Right. And Lynn, I mean, I'm interested in knowing how is your group dealing with, because I understand the Oriental Group has about 800 employees nationwide. So what has been going on behind the scenes in your company?
Hi, Jen. So basically from the first MCO to the third MCO, I mean, we're quite proud to say that, we've managed to protect our jobs and we didn't do any deductions in salaries. And, for us, it's all about the welfare of keeping everyone employed during these difficult times. And as I mentioned before, I mean, as business owners, we do have the responsibilities of those who are under our payroll, and we would do anything in any circumstance in order to protect their jobs. And the same goes for the business. But what I'm feeling right now is that we are at the mercy of these policies that don't make any sense. It's just like how we protect our employees. we feel like the government is not employing it's not protecting businesses. So how does that, how is that fair on all the other sectors or all the restaurants that are struggling? Everyone is pretty much on their own.
Right.
So I just, we're just hoping for a bit more understanding on how our business works, and hopefully the government to protect our businesses. And that's all we're asking for. And that's what the petition is all about, because we do have businesses to run,
right,
and we need to survive. And obviously we need to battle that, and we respect policies that make sense.
right. And what needs to be done now in order to save the F&B industry?
I believe that dine-in should be open, probably with stricter SOPs. We should allow dining up to 4 persons in order to, accommodate for, dining groups to come back with. And in agreement with all the panelists here, we've all been adhering to SOPs. All our tables have been 2 meters apart. And I just think that, we should open up dine-ins, allow the economy to flow. But if we want to impose an MCO, then be it. Do the first MCO where you close everything. We would respect that. Don't do anything that is half-hearted, and you're going to get half-hearted results.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you, Lynn. And I'd like to hear from George. George, what do you think needs to be done now to save the F&B industry, particularly like you're in the fast food business and as well as restaurants. So what do you think? What needs to be done now immediately?
I think if you look at Singapore, we have gone through, we have restaurants in Singapore, we have 30 of them in Singapore, and the government has paid, give a wage subsidy every month. There was a circuit breaker, and we have managed to break even, pay all the bills, even pay all the landlord bills. So I think the government have to come out strongly, and every MCO hurts business, and this particular one, they have come out with very, very quickly to restrain people from doing business, but nothing about what kind of subsidy they are coming out with. Are they forcing the banks not to recall loans? Are they, at least the first one, you had the 6 months moratorium and all that, but this time, very quiet on that front. Our PM seems to be a bit silent on a lot of the things that we are waiting for, right?
Right.
Because it hurts business, and what can we do? And I would agree that there's different impact on even the category of restaurants,
yes.
right? I would say A&W is not impacted like some of you guys fine dining. I'm sure 90% who would order a Wagyu beef for takeaway or for delivery. But I think A&W, when we pivot to delivery, we have managed to get at least 30-40% up in sales,
right,
to cover up the loss in dining. But
right,
definitely the casual dining and the fine dining gets affected a bit more.
right.
You have to then help these people with maybe wage subsidy, or maybe there has to be a law to say, hey, the landlord, you maybe you charge half rent because of the MCO to all those that are affected based on their sales, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And Encik Ashraf, what about on your side? What do you think that needs to be done now? How to save the industry, Encik Ashraf? How do we save the F&B industry?
I think, in my opinion, immediately government have to allow F&B to allow dine-in for F&B.
Okay.
One is because all this while we have it is proven the F&B in majority adhering to the SOP very well, and this proven with the low number of cases in F&Bs. And if they can allow, I think if 4% or even maximum based on the table, it still didn't contribute any significant cases in COVID in Malaysia. But if they want to add more SOP, I think maybe they can allow every customer come in, maybe maximum they can spend only 1 hour. Let's say 1 hour, then after 1 hour they must compulsory for them to leave or take away their food. It will be more better, more safe, and then because all this previous SOP has already proven that we are contributing a very low case. If they want to add more, just allow us for dining. Maybe they want to put little bit stricter, and by giving a time period for every dine-in customer, maybe 1 hour or maybe maximum of 1.5 hours, because I think it will give a lot of comfort to the customer and also to the F&B operator. And then there is a study by WHO as well, because the infection is normally when every person they are exposed to it on a longer period, let's say 2 to 3 hours. That's why you can see why factory have a lot of cases, because they normally work in confined space, they work for 8 hours in same station between their colleague. That's why they can the infection can be spread easily in the factory, and the rest of the industry they're having high whereas for F&B, I think most of the customer they will only come and sit for 1 hour.
Yeah.
1.5 hour, then every table have a social distancing, and then most of them coming from same house. We can also do some restriction. Okay, no birthday party, no anniversary celebration in restaurant. We can do, no problem, as long as they just allow customer to dine in, just for us to survive, so that we can get at least, like Josh was saying, we can get 60%, 50% sales from original, so that we can just to make sure for us to survive.
Right.
This
Right.
industry.
Yeah. And Puan Rina, I'd like to ask you about, how can F&B businesses recover and move forward?
We hope the government will put things in place so that we don't get surprises, because for the past 1 year, like 2020, we just can't plan anything at all, in the business, and unfortunately even this year. So if they want to do a MCO, do a really a good one, a strict one, so that bring down the numbers, and then the next part of the year, the things is open up, and then business will go back to normal, and with the MCO implemented. But otherwise, it's very frustrating. It's like a yo-yo. 1 month, 2 months, like last year, the March to April to June was bad, and then July started picking up, and then going down again. December, January, December is bad, lockdown again. So it's very frustrating, and we can't. I am so worried that nothing can be planned, and you just don't know what is going to happen the next month. You see?
Yeah. In fact, I was just going to ask you, how much can you really plan, for the industry?
We can't. I mean, we are taking this month to month. We're excited about the last year, July, September, October, and bang again, November it went down again, and then come January. So it's very difficult. It's really very difficult to just that we want to, whatever the good months we have to make sure that it's well utilized, and then we have to keep on saving whatever we can for eventuality of any lockdown again. But it's very difficult, and if you don't have enough resources, that's the end of it. You are always you need to have no choice but to get the payment of the rental, and what we don't like is to not pay the staff salary. So we really hope things can be better, and by not saying that, by taking a really solid good action of the MCO, and move on. Otherwise, we cannot see a silver lining at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So these are trying times indeed, for the F&B industry, and we hope that all of us can see the light at the end of the tunnel soon. So, the cries of the F&B industry to open up dining again, to save, so that, the F&B industry can be saved before it's too late. I'm Jennifer Ong from Hospitality Asia Channel, signing off, and have a great day and stay safe. We'll catch you again.